Welcome to the University of Washington Beta Alpha Psi's first educational video. I'm Heather Lyons and I'll be presenting the topic of the triple bottom line. So first I want to discuss a fundamental question to business. What are a business's priorities? Is it maximizing shareholder value, or is it being a socially responsible corporate citizen? There are many debates on this issue, and I'll give you a minute to just think about what kinds of things will go into either one of those measurements. Things that go into shareholder value include your profits and just your general overall performance of the company, whereas things that go into social responsibility include being a good corporate citizen, taking care of the community, being eco-friendly in many ways, and other concerns. A new idea in this field of accounting and in many other fields is the triple bottom line. It's a holistic approach to business management, and it doesn't compromise between shareholder value or social responsibility. It's a way to combine the two and be sort of the best of three worlds. The three elements are profit, planet, and people. There are many different measurements for each one of these elements, but I'll go through them shortly. First is profit. This is your traditional bottom line. This isn't anything revolutionary. Most businesses are already inclined to measure their performance based on the bottom line or the profit. Now this is important to note that it's about maximizing profits, not through cutting corners, but through increasing efficiency and decreasing costs. And it's also balancing long-term and short-term goals. Now the planet. This one's pretty easy to measure, just as profit is. You can measure things like how much your company recycles, how many pounds of carbon dioxide emissions your company produces, as far as all the way along your supply chain, and many other inputs and outputs. The goal here is to minimize waste and to incorporate as many lean and efficient programs as you can into your company. This is about recognizing and internalizing the significance of global climate change and other important trends and forces that are happening in our world today. The final element is people. This is kind of a hard one to measure. It's really hard to determine how fair your company's policies are or how ethical your managers are acting, but that's the basis of this whole segment of the triple bottom line. For people, you want to focus on reporting and transparency so that you're allowing your consumers to make very educated decisions, and you also want to focus on your customers who are more inclined to purchase from a company that's incorporating eco-friendly projects so that you don't accidentally slip into what's called greenwashing, which I'll discuss later. It's also important to be active in your community and engage in social projects that help to restore a community and help it to be economically viable and independent. So is this really possible? Can you really have the best of three worlds? There's a lot of debate on this. It's not a zero-sum game. We know that the economy is not like an I win, you lose kind of situation. But the important thing here is that something has got to happen. Something has got to change. We can't keep going on with business as usual. It's important for globally developing countries and emerging economies because the environment is becoming sort of a race to the bottom. Companies are escaping the countries that have higher regulations, like Europe, and to some degree the US, and they're going to countries that do not have such strict regulations in order to be able to pollute and not change their business practices. Now, labor rights are also important. We all know about the Nike situation and what happened when Nike did not supervise their laborers, and they had a big fallout from that. And then also economic independence. A lot of what's happening today, especially with agriculture, is called dumping, where countries are subject to the lower cost, lower price goods essentially being dumped on their economy, which really is hurting them. So who really cares about this? Now it's important to consumers because consumers want to make more socially responsible and eco-friendly purchases, and they develop a really strong loyalty with the companies that do that and that they have learned to trust. On the other hand, they also punish companies that have sort of faltered in these lines. And companies should also care because the triple bottom line is all about focusing on innovation and finding better ways to do things and improve your business practices, which is obviously a very, very competitive measure to take. The thing with the triple bottom line is that the objectives are all reinforcing. They're not opposing forces. You don't have to choose between maximizing profits or doing good for people, doing good for the community. You can find the best of three worlds. And your goal is to reduce waste and increase efficiency. It's a typical business goal. We're just putting it in a different context. This is about managing resources. Resources are dwindling, and we're facing a really big issue with limited resources as far as oil and energy and all sorts of other concerns. And also, well-treated employees, that's the people side, they work better. They're more innovative. You have more opportunities for bottom-up ideas, which is really the foundation of growth for a lot of companies. Now, how does this affect the accounting world? The Global Reporting Initiative is an organization that has developed these guidelines to be able to allow companies to report and measure the elements of the triple bottom line, and to be able to provide that information to the public, for consumers, and for shareholders to be able to make decisions. The GRI has core indicators in each area, including the economic performance of the company, environmental measurements such as material use, energy, water, biodiversity, and compliance with local regulations. They also have social core indicators such as labor practices and decent work. This includes measurements like the number of human rights violations and the number of claims. And then several other important measurements that are very specified and pretty quantifiable, even though we're dealing with a very qualitative in nature subject. Europe is leading the world as far as leading the Global Reporting Initiative's guidelines and keeping them going. About 45% of European nations made up the entire number of companies that had reported using GRI. And the main focus is on transparency and comparability. And as you can see from this chart here, it's the number of firms that are using the Global Reporting Initiative's guidelines have almost doubled since 2007. So a business is almost in a very bad position if they don't follow those guidelines. Now, what does this mean for students and for other professionals? There are lots of emerging opportunities and lots of new places for smart people to go. Accounting, there's a big issue with being able to measure and report on these issues and follow the GRI or whatever other guidelines a company chooses to follow. Finance is actually weighing those decisions and seeing which measures and which new initiatives are going to actually pay off. Operations is in charge of making sure that the operations are streamlined and are super efficient and being able to report their information to the other departments. And of course, management is building that triple bottom line strategy into the whole business strategy.